what a lucky do for you.
Ah, another wanderer. Welcome to Shinies and Lucky Doos. My name is Shirviu, and I'll be your tour guide today as we're about to get in the zone. Today, we'll be taking you on a tour through the Arathi Highlands, a place that has received renewed interest in Battle for Azeroth, where the newly added warfront has the Horde and Alliance battling over the zone due to the strategic placement of Stromgarde Keep. So today, I'll be providing you with the lore behind important quests, characters, and points of interest in the zone. So let's get into it, shall we? Arathi Highlands is a contested zone located in the Eastern Kingdoms, known as the Cradle of Human Civilization. This zone was barely changed at all during the Cataclysm revamp. It's nestled between the massive dwarven-built Thandal span, which leads to the wetlands in the south, and is blocked off from the Hillsbrad foothills by Thoradin's Wall in the northwest, making it a heavily defensible and strategic choke point. Even before the presence of the wall, the river in the neighboring Hillsbrad foothills acted as a natural defense. A mine has been dug into the large mountain range, and the dwarves have recently built a mountain tunnel leading to the hinterlands in the north. Finally, one of the few docks along the Eastern Kingdoms can be found in the west, where the zone opens up to the harsh, cold sea. For the Horde, the breadcrumb quest to come to Arathi Highlands starts in Hillsbrad foothills, whereas for the Alliance it begins in the wetlands. There's quite a lot to talk about with regard to the Arathi Highlands, so let's start right off at the northwest entrance of Thoradin's Wall. Thoradin's Wall is the introduction to the zone for most Horde players, as it separates the Arathi Highlands from the Hillsbrad foothills. It gets its name from King Thoradin of Arathor, who had it built to protect his new kingdom from northwestern incursions of Amani trolls. If you've never heard of King Thoradin, you're really in for a treat with this tour, as King Thoradin is quite an important lore figure for the humans. He united the disparate barbarian tribes of Arathor under a single banner, thus founding the first ever human kingdom, the Kingdom of Strom. He's also responsible for the human High Elf allegiance during the Troll Wars, which allowed for a small number of humans from Strom to be trained as mages by the elves of Quel'Thalas. Not only was this the first ever human elf allegiance, it was also the humans' introduction to arcane magic. In the Legion expansion, we also learned that prior to founding Strom, Thoradin went by the title of Warlord Thoradin. He was the leader of the Arathi tribe of humans and was the original owner of the artifact weapon known as Stromgarde the Warbreaker. Arms warriors get to meet his ghost in Tirisfal Glades, where he has them retrieve the sword from the corpse of Zakaj the Corruptor, a Cathrax who was originally entombed with the Titan Keeper Tyr. Thoradin had come to the tomb in search of Tyr, and accidentally broke the magic seal which kept Zakaj imprisoned. He gave his life to defeat Zakaj, and his sword, Stromgarde, kept the Cathrax trapped for almost 3,000 years after. A cool thing about the wall is that we get the rare opportunity of seeing what it actually would have looked like during the Second War through the Caverns of Time escape from Durnhold dungeon. The years have not been kind to it, but as you can see it was once quite impressive and may have even been the inspiration for the Greymane Wall of Gilneas. What's odd is that the weaker wooden door is on the outside of the wall facing the Hillsbrad foothills, while the portcullis is on the inside of the wall facing Arathi. Normally, the purpose of a portcullis is to stop battering rams from getting to the main wooden door, so this design gives the impression the wall is set up to defend Hillsbrad from Arathi and not the other way around. At first, we were really thrown off by this, but upon closer inspection, you might notice that the ramparts are actually accessed from the Hillsbrad foothills side, near the dwarven bunker of Dungarok. Perhaps the storm pikes actually modified the wall to defend against the Orcish Horde, who ultimately had to detour to the Alterac Mountains during the Second War. Upon entering Arathi Highlands through Thoradin's wall, we find ourselves approaching the Horde encampment of Galen's Fall. This camp was a new addition in Cataclysm and acts as a base for Sylvanas' forces. Here, the Horde players meet the now undead Galen Trollbane, who is a Forsaken quest giver. In life, Galen was the last remaining crown prince of Stromgarde, who murdered his father Thoras Trollbane to usurp the throne. Back in Classic WoW, he was still a human and would patrol with the last remnants of Stromgarde's cavalry. They would ride on the road between the ruins of Stromgarde to Refugee Point and back again, until of course Horde players killed him as part of a quest chain to retrieve his family's sword Trollkalar. Sylvanas has since raised his corpse, and ironically he now asks that players help him in getting his sword back. In Legion, players kill Galen as part of the Death Knight Order Hall campaign in order to retrieve his sword Trollkalar, which we learn is the key to his father Thoras Trollbane's tomb. Death Knights later raise Thoras Trollbane to serve the Lich King as one of his 4 horsemen of the Apocalypse. Though Galen was the crown prince and rightful heir to the throne of Stromgarde, his cousin Danath Trollbane is in fact still alive. You may know Danath from his statue out front of Stormwind in the Valley of Heroes, which commemorates him for his courage in venturing past the Dark Portal to Outlands alongside Illyria, Turalyon, and Khadgar, as one of the members of the Sons of Lothar. It's for this reason we see Danath as one of the commanders in the Arathi Warfront, leading the Alliance's defense of his ancestral home. Next, we move down the road to the ruined stronghold of Stromgarde Keep. As previously mentioned, Stromgarde Keep was originally built under the rule of King Thoradin of Arathor, but he had not always been the ruler of the humans. As the story goes, the first humans descended from a group of Vrykul who fled from their home of Northrend with their Titanforged brethren, the Mechanomes and the Earthen. After being inflicted by Yogg-Saron's curse of flesh, they were no longer welcome in their homeland, and so there was a great exodus. Led by the Titanic Keeper Tyr, the Titan Keeper Arcadus, and the Titanic Watcher Irenaea, the group fled far from Ulduar with the Discs of Norgannon. Along the way, the group was attacked in Tirisfal Glades by 2 Cathraxi sent by Keeper Loken to retrieve the discs: Zakash the Corruptor, whom we mentioned earlier, and Kithix. Keeper Tyr told the group to go on ahead to Uldaman, where they had planned to lock themselves away in stasis. It's only once they safely arrived at Uldaman that the Vrykul decided to leave their fellow Titanforged to seek out their savior, Keeper Tyr. They headed back up north to where Tyr had been abandoned and established their various tribes across Tirisfal, Silverpine, Alterac, and Hillsbrad. The Vrykul had always been very tribal and territorial, warring over their lands. But as the curse of flesh took its toll and the few remaining Vrykul died out, one human came to the conclusion that their warring ways had to change. His name was Warlord Thoradin of the Arathi tribe. With the arrival of the High Elves to the area, the threat of the neighboring Amani trolls was growing. Thoradin knew that if his people were to survive, they had to unite, and so he set out to ally each of the enemy human tribes under his banner. Some tribes joined readily, others only after diplomatic marriages. But one tribe in particular, from Tirisfal Glades, was very different from the rest. Most of the humans had been animistic in their religious practices and were mainly druids and elemental shamans. Up in Tirisfal, however, they had abandoned their ancient practices in favor of the Holy Light. As a final act to seal the union of the tribes, Warlord Thoradin promised to follow the ways of the Light and abandon their ancient practices. The tribal leaders would each become King Thoradin's generals, and finally he was ready to establish a foothold. It was at this point that Thoradin's father came to him in a dream, wearing the pelt of a black wolf. In this dream, his father told him of an arid land southeast of the Tirisfal Glades where his people would be able to prosper. Thoradin sought out this promised land, traveling until he saw a black wolf wandering around a barren area of land. It was here where Thoradin decided to carve the boundaries of his keep into the dirt using his sword Stromgarde. King Thoradin ruled from his new kingdom of Strom until the end of the Troll Wars, when he abdicated to his brother Igneous Trollbane in order to pursue his true calling, to discover the truth of his people's ancestry. He later perished in Tyr's tomb after his battle to reseal the dormant Cathrax Zakaj the Corruptor. It was the Trollbanes who later changed the name from Strom to Stromgarde, and they ruled from this seat of power for many years. With the threat of the trolls gone, some of Stromgarde's population moved out to build up new independent kingdoms such as Lordaeron and Gilneas. These territories remained fully independent until the events of the Second War. With the threat of the orc incursion from the south, the various human kingdoms united once again under the banner of Lordaeron. King Thoris Trollbane of Stromgarde remained King Taranis Menethil of Lordaeron's closest ally until the end of the Second War. King Taranis Menethil ordered Stromgarde to build the internment camp of Hammerfall to house some of the orcs. King Thoris Trollbane strongly disagreed with the idea as it was too expensive, arguing that Stromgarde did not have access to the same riches as the other kingdoms, seeing as they had only one mine, very little lumber, and less fertile land. This made Stromgarde heavily dependent on trade with the other kingdoms to stay afloat, and as such, King Thoris preferred to kill all of the orcs. Stromgarde ended up withdrawing from the alliance after this disagreement, becoming independent once again. Not long after, our friend Galen Trollbane assassinated his father, King Thoris Trollbane, and most of Stromgarde quickly fell to the syndicate rogues and ogres who now reside within the walls. A fragment of the Stromgarde militia can be seen fighting to this day to take back their city. In Classic WoW, the ruined city was known as a mini-dungeon, as it was packed with high respawn elites, patrols, and multiple mini-boss mobs needed for quests. Players would take along a 5-man group and organize themselves in order to focus down the healers and interrupt the casters while keeping an eye out for the odd treasure chest. This made it quite a fun and complex area to come to when leveling. Some notable structures among the ruins include a mage tower, a barracks, a stable, an inn, a chapel, a crypt, various houses, and of course, the keep. Some would speculate that in lore, Stromgarde should in fact have a harbor similar to Stormwind's, which was not represented in-game until Cataclysm. Instead, all we have is a small pirate cove which would not logically have supported a city so dependent on trade. Which brings us to the small docks of Faldir's Cove, located south of Stromgarde and down along the coast. In Classic WoW, this cove was a bit more hidden and was only accessible by going through a cave behind Stromgarde Keep. However, when the Cataclysm hit, the entrance to the cove was moved. The mountains have since opened up a bit to reveal a path down to the coast, littered with signposts cautioning you to beware and to turn back. Faldir's Cove is named after the last living descendant of King Thoradin. It's thought that Faldir began his voyage across the sea from this cove after hearing of new lands abroad, which eventually led to the founding of Stormwind. Nowadays, adventurers will find a shipwrecked crew of Blackwater raiders from Booty Bay, who are being assailed by the nearby Naga. It was explained back in Classic WoW that their ship, the Maiden's Folly, was on its way to Booty Bay to warn the other Blackwater pirates of an impending Bloodsail Buccaneer attack. Seeing as Onyxia has her hands in Naga and pirate affairs under the guise of Lady Katrana Prestor at the time, I would not be surprised if the Naga intercepted the pirates' course as part of her plans. Underwater, off the coast of Faldir's Cove, we find the Drowned Reef. Various shipwrecks lie on the seafloor alongside wrecks from pirates and traders. Ships belonging to the lost Third Fleet of Kultiras can also be found here. This fleet was captained by Jaina Proudmoore's brother, Derek Proudmoore, during the Second War, but was lost during an attack from the Red Dragonflight back when the Dragon Queen Alexstrasza and her clutch were being subjugated by the Dragon Maw orcs. There are only a few places in-game where remnants of this fleet can be found, the most notable belonging to the Eye of Paleth quest chain in the wetlands. The seafloor of the reef is littered with calcified elven gems of an unknown origin, which the pirates are after. There are also Naga in the reef among the ruins and shipwrecks. It's unclear why the Naga have stayed here, but one can assume they're likely searching for relics from either the wrecks or the ruins. Perhaps they're interested in the same elven gems as the pirates, or could it be something else? The reef itself is made up of what appears to be the remains of a broken-up Titan facility. The images on the ruined walls are reminiscent of those found in the Badlands, Uldaman, and Lochmadan. What this Titan facility could have been is a mystery, but wouldn't it be fascinating if it had something to do with why there ended up being such a large bay here in the first place? What if something large, like a huge facility, fell away into the sea during the Sundering and as a result tore away the coastal islands of Kultiras, Tolbarad, Crestfall, and Zuuldair from the mainland? This is all speculation, of course, but it would be interesting to see if we find out more in the future. Next, we'll move along the coast and take you down to the Thandol Span. This massive bridge spans the Thandol Valley and was built by the Ironforged dwarves as a means to keep relations with their wild hammer relatives of the hinterlands after the War of the Three Hammers. It's the only way to go north to the Arathi Highlands by land, and as such, it shows the wear from many battles. In Classic WoW, it was under attack by Dark Iron dwarves. Since Cataclysm, however, it seems the Dark Irons have left, and now the Twilight's Hammer Cult seek to claim it instead. Up the road, as we move into Arathi Highlands from the Thandol Span, we come to Boulderfist Hall. The Boulderfist Ogre clan hails from the green plains of Nagrand in Draenor. Since working with the Orcish Horde during the Second War, they've now made their home in Arathi Highlands, the closest thing to Nagrand on Azeroth. The Boulderfists also have an outpost which is carved out of the hill Boulder Gore, where they live among the last remnants of the forest trolls of the Witherbark tribe. The majority of the trolls live in Witherbark Village, however, which is located next to Boulderfist Hall. The Witherbark tribe have a deep hatred for Stromgarde, which stems from the history of conflict between humans and trolls in the area. Their allegiance with the ogres has lasted ever since the two served under the Orcish Horde during the Second War. They share a common desire to push out both the Horde and Alliance from their ancestral lands, and coordinate periodic attacks upon the Horde camp of Hammerfall, as well as Stromgarde Keep, where their attacks are led by an ogre from the Crush Ridge clan of Alterac, named Orkalar. Speaking of the Horde, near Witherbark Village is the Horde-controlled Golshek Farm. After the Third War, the orcs from Hammerfall managed to take this farm from the humans. While the orcs used the farm to supply the Horde base of Hammerfall, in Classic WoW, the Forsaken also began using it as a testing ground for the new plague. Their first attempt was stopped by Alliance adventurers when they defeated the Forsaken's apothecary and destroyed his research. Since the Cataclysm, however, the Forsaken have started their plague experiments on the farm back up again to complement their efforts in Hillsbrad. Not too far away from Golshek Farm is the Horde town of Hammerfall. This is the location of the Horde's Arathi Basin Battleground entrance, and so in Classic WoW, Horde players were able to buy PvP items from the vendors here. It was once the biggest Alliance internment camp for the Orcs after the Second War, and is named Hammerfall in order of the fall of Orgrim Doomhammer, war chief of the Horde during the last part of the First War and all of the Second War. He also wielded the Doomhammer, which would later be taken up by Thrall along with his armor and the title of War Chief of the Horde. It was here at Hammerfall where Orgrim subsequently died during Thrall's liberation of the captive orcs, known as the Uprising. One particular orc named Gormul witnessed Orgrim's death. It completely broke Gormul's spirit to see Orgrim lanced in the back by a coward, and so he and a few others didn't follow Thrall's orcs out of the camp. Lost and without guidance, these orcs continued to suffer from fell lethargy and were not cured by Thrall's shamanic teachings like the rest of the Horde. Not even distant stories of the booming city of Orgrimmar would move these orcs, as they fell further and further into indifference. Finally, a troll shaman by the name of Torgan came to Gormul. Torgan taught him the power of shamanism, and in Classic WoW, he sent players to retrieve raptor hearts for a ritual. Torgan imbued Gormul with the spirit of the raptor, which helped him conquer his doubts and free him from his fell lethargy. Since Cataclysm, the trolls seem to have left Hammerfall altogether. However, Gormul remains, and players now help him to imbue an orb with the fiery strength and intelligence of the raptor, as Torgan once taught him, so he can cure his fellow warriors of their own fell lethargy in Hammerfall. In the mountains near Hammerfall, we find Dry Whisker Ravine. Kobolds live in a cave here where they're guarding one of the crystal shards of Misrael from their earth giant allies. During a long quest chain, adventurers are asked to venture here to collect motes of Misrael, one of the reagents needed to break Misrael's bindings. Misrael is a titanic watcher from Deepholm who calls herself the Earth Princess and tricks adventurers into releasing her from her shackles. Players communicate with Misrael through a crystal shard in the Circle of East Binding near Hammerfall. These circles of binding were also used in Classic WoW for certain class quests. The most notable of these was the Warrior quest chain to obtain the Whirlwind weapons. Misrael asks that players venture to each of the elemental circles of binding to gather fire, water, air, and earth reagents needed to free her from her prison. In Classic WoW, players were also required to venture to the Badlands to acquire the final piece needed to release Misrael from a former member of the Twilight's Hammer cult. Once the Rod of Order has been assembled, and the Earth Giants guarding Misrael's prison are taken out, players are finally able to release Misrael. It's only after freeing her that it's made clear to players that they've been tricked. For reasons unknown, Misrael was corrupted by the old gods and had been subsequently banished underground by the Earth Giants of the Arathi Highlands in order to protect the world. After dealing with Misrael once and for all, players turn in the quest to an orc who reveals he is also a member of the Twilight's Hammer cult. The orc goes on to apologize for the trouble he's caused, stating that the whispers of his past are sometimes difficult to forget. Players are later thanked by Misrael for cleansing her corruption if they visit her in her home of Deepholm after completing the quest chain. A little ways from the Circle of East Binding is the Dabiri farmstead. After all these years, the farm still belongs to the Dabiri family of Stromgarde. Where other farms in the area have been plagued or taken by the Horde, this farm may be the oldest human farm in all of Azeroth to still be under its original ownership. The farm remains crucial in supplying the nearby Alliance camp of Refuge Point, the base for Alliance operations within the Arathi Highlands. Strategically located in one of the few ravines in the area, in the center of the zone, Refuge Point is used as both a military outpost as well as housing for those who fled the sacking of Stromgarde at the hands of the Syndicate rogues, Boulderfist ogres, and Witherbark trolls. Similar to Hammerfall, Refuge Point is the Alliance's Arathi Basin entrance, and so back in Classic WoW, players could find some PvP vendors located here. Although the Horde and Alliance have been fighting over Arathi Basin for years, you can see from the state of both Hammerfall and Refuge Point that neither the Alliance nor the Horde in the area are truly that well equipped to continue their battle. It'll definitely be interesting to see how the aftermath of Battle for Azeroth Warfronts affects the zone as a whole. Will the Alliance finally lose the oldest farmlands they possess? The Syndicate has a long history of hatred for Stromgarde, which all started back before the Second War. King Aiden Paranold presided over the independent kingdom of Alterac, and King Thoras Trollbane held kingship over Stromgarde at the time. The two kings always hated each other and were often caught in arguments. But the straw that broke the camel's back was a series of betrayals by King Aiden Paranold. To secure his own kingdom's safety, he allowed Doomhammer's orcs to move through Alterac towards Lordaeron unimpeded. Next, he tipped off a group of trolls, likely the Witherbarks, about a convoy of high elves passing through Tarren Mill, thus allowing them to be ambushed. He later attempted to have Uther the Lightbringer assassinated by pirates in order to tamper with the Paladin Order of the Silver Hand, and he also organized a peasant revolt in Tyr's Hand to cover up the Orcish mining operations in the area. Finally, he stole the Book of Medivh and brought it to the orcs in exchange for their help in eliminating Stromgarde. King Thoras Trollbane subsequently declared that King Aiden Paranold should be executed for treason. Instead, Uther the Lightbringer declared the nobles of Alterac to be exiled. The orcs refused to take in the exiled humans of Alterac, and thus, with nowhere to go, the group became bandits. This is how the rogue organization of the Syndicate Thieves was first formed. After the events of the Third War, the Syndicate seized the opportunity to gain back their old kingdom of Alterac, as well as to establish themselves in outposts alongside Durnhold and in the large area of Stromgarde's Keep. The Syndicate are hostile to both Alliance and Horde, though players are able to gain reputation with the faction up to a neutral standing. It's impossible, however, to become friendly or higher. Alright everybody, that concludes the tour. What did you guys think? As a questing zone, I absolutely love the Arathi Highlands. It's one of my favorite places to quest while leveling, and that's why we chose it to kick off our In the Zone lore series. There's so much in-depth history to this zone, I feel like we've only scratched the surface. There's also two unique battle pets to be caught here, the Tiny Twister, which looks like a tiny version of the air elementals that can be seen at the Circle of Outer Binding, and the Grasslands Cottontail, which is an adorable little rabbit, in case you needed more incentive to check the place out. So, what are your favorite things about the Arathi Highlands? Let us know what you think of the zone in the comments, and as always, if you have any questions at all, we'd be more than happy to answer. We also have Twitch, Twitter, and Discord channels, which we chat in every day, discussing lore and hanging out with our amazing friends. Links can be found in the description box below for anyone who'd like to join our community, and thank you so much for watching Shinies and Lucky Doos. Farewell, friends of the Grummles. May your feet find good trails.